well, I don't want to take up everybody's day, and thank you so much for indulging me and being able to move this back an hour. Didn't realize that I had an AGM for Kettle Creek this morning as well when we set this meeting date. It wasn't on my calendar. That was one of those technology advances that sometimes don't always get caught up with events. With that, I need an approval for the agenda. Anything to add? Councillor Emmett or Sarah?
I'll second it.
Nothing to add. Sorry, I was just motioning to approve.
Okay. And Sally seconds. All in favor? All the vote, please.
Mr. Warden,
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Warden. And not the warden anymore.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Kim Smale. Kim Smale,
His mouth's moving.
Rob Rom,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Michaela Lentz,
Yes.
and Councillor Jones.
Yes.
8-0, the motion is carried.
Okay. Everybody had a chance to review the January 27th minutes? Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
Happy to move.
Seconder, please. Don't be shy.
I'll second it.
Rob, call the vote, please. Catherine?
Mr. Warden,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Kim Smale, Rob Rom,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Michaela Lentz,
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
8-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, disclosure of pecuniary interest. I don't imagine there is any. And seeing none, we'll move on to reports. First, reports from myself regarding the naturalized space north of the county building. I did speak with Betsy McClure from Kettle Creek. Betsy's interested in looking at the possible project. She wanted to wait till the snow is not quite as deep. So I'll touch base with her again next week after we have this melt and see if she has some time to take a peek at it. And that's all I have to report. Next, green purchasing update from Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So far, Ray and I have reviewed the Elgin County procurement policy, and I had a productive phone call with Mike Hoekstra, is in charge of procurement for the county. We've also reviewed a number of sustainable procurement policies from other municipalities, from the private sector, and from universities. So currently, we do have some language around environmental considerations in our procurement policy in section 12.4. But I think that there's a lot that we could add in to improve that. And in addition, the county has taken steps that are in line with sustainable procurement already without any kind of formal directive in terms of purchasing energy saving appliances, LED lighting retrofits, electronics recycling, and the reduction of disposable assets in favor of reusable assets. So Mike was very helpful in reviewing those items with me and in kind of having a good discussion around what would be the challenges around sustainable procurement that he faces and how a policy might work for Elgin County. So some of the common themes in terms of sustainable procurement that emerged from some of those other policies that we reviewed and that I discussed with Mike were making sure to define sustainable procurement, and in particular the word sustainable, defining the specific environmental parameters to be considered, such as pollutant releases, toxicity, waste generation, water efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions, energy consumptions, renewable energy, depletion of natural resources, recyclability, and recycled content. And then using these factors to consider not just the least expensive option, but to consider the life cycle assessment of the procurement. So that includes not only capital costs, but production, use, maintenance, and disposal, the disposal of the product or material. And that was in common with kind of all of these sustainable procurement policies, was having this life cycle assessment. Then also considering incorporating zero waste principles. And broadly speaking, that would be focusing first on avoiding, reducing, and reusing to address the reduction and elimination of waste. And then moving on to the recycling, recovering, and disposal and residual, which addresses the end of life management of products and materials. We discussed perhaps because there are so many staff engaged in procurement, given that low dollar procurements under 15,000 do not require an RFQ or an RFP or a tender, that we could consider some kind of training module that Mike has actually seen in some of his conferences and his own training. And so he has offered to pass that information along. And then also just to make sure that the language is kept very broad and flexible, given the diverse nature of procurement done by the county, and given the multiple factors which are considered in the life cycle assessment of any procurement. So that is what we have so far. And that is, we're kind of waiting, speaking with Mike and getting more information from him before we move forward further. So any comments?
Thank you, Sarah. That's you guys seem to be digging right into this. Great job. Any questions for Ray or Sarah?
I would commend them on their work with Mike. I think that's great, and that clearly they have Mike on side as well, so that's going to be very important as they work through that.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll move on to the next report from Rob regarding official plan review and roadside vegetation management. And first, I'd like to apologize to Rob. You asked me to get a couple numbers for you, and I totally forgot. I do have them now, or part of them, and I'll touch base with you after the meeting.
I've gone by that. I've tried to do the best I could with what I've got, and then I think that if I can start, like this presentation is more about a learning experience from what I gather. Obviously I'm not in the political part of things, so I don't really understand procedures and the way things evolve into the county, which I'm trying to learn and do my best at. But this presentation is sort of an exploratory of items that need to be addressed. So keep in mind, not into the council, that I don't keep that sort of thing going. So I'll do the best I can with this, and hopefully something can come out of it. So to start out with, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. It's something I'm very passionate about. I've noticed on the slogans coming into Elgin County that states progressive by nature. To me, this means advancing with nature. This is a publicly states an objective from the county's willingness to follow nature-based solutions. A statement from Bayham, Elgin County, where families stay for generations and where real people make progress with and for nature. And I've highlighted those areas there because that's very important. Progress with and for nature. So nature-based solutions involve conserving, restoring, and better managing ecosystems and removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and increasing biodiversity, hopefully sustaining our existence. So nature-based systems could solve a global crisis by reducing carbon by 25 to 30%. So 1/3 of the world's carbon issues could be solved this way. What could we implement into the official plan as a starting block for this procedure? Next slide. So I didn't realize that this is only the second official plan that's being produced. In 2010, Elgin County Council embarked on the program to develop the county's first ever official plan. The policy document sets out long-term goals and objectives and how the community wishes to grow and develop. We need to educate and lead the community with decisions based on science. It was the intent of the county in 2015 to identify natural corridor systems in accordance with section D121, blah, blah, blah. This study is now complete from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Rehabilitating roadsides can make a significant difference in pollinator health and biodiversity. In order to meet the objectives of clean air, water, and land, if we could commit to a feasibility study of 5 test plots from St. Thomas to Port, St. Thomas to Talbot, St. Thomas to Almer, St. Thomas to Shedden, St. Thomas to Fingal, each of 2 acres, that's 10 acres. That's not much. And we have the facilities and the know-how to do this. So 10 acres, why wouldn't we just make it an even dozen and make 1 going to London? So we've got all the roads basically covered getting out of St. Thomas from Elgin County to the next cities. So what kind of statement could be included or introduced into the official plan to promote programs such as this? It's necessary to get this concept to reality to make things work. Next slide. So the benefits, no, one back. Yep, you got it. So the benefits of integrated roadside vegetation management. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So in this area, the accepted perception of cut grass and manicured areas, but this study shows after rehabilitation efforts have been put into place, people actually prefer more of a natural area. Birmingham, Michigan's a perfect example, a very prominent city in Detroit, just outside of Detroit, and they do not manicure their roads. If a tree falls down, they leave it there. If the grass is growing high, they leave it there. They've even got gravel roads that are just adjacent to the insides of the interior of the city. So it's a very natural atmosphere there. We need to change the perception of people, and do a test plot with signage would be the best way to get acceptance of roadside vegetation management plan without manicured roads, but still safe, transferring perception and energy, because the energy that goes into cutting grass is enormous. And if we could change that energy that's being produced right now and put it into native pollinator habitats, it's amazing what could happen. So this survey that's up on the screen was a survey that was done in the States. It would produce the results that I've talked about. And it just goes to show that the majority of people prefer, when they're up north, looking at the vegetation on the sides of the roads rather than the manicured cut atmosphere that we're into today. Next slide. So, yeah, this one. So the benefits of integrated roadside vegetation management: increased local biodiversity, provides habitat for native bees and butterflies, moths, insect, endangered species at risk, increases stormwater filtration, natural snow benches, establishes prairies for more resistance to invasive species. It shows commitment and leadership. The point is the most important. Leadership and commitment from the county is what we're going to need. Again, progressive by nature. How ecosystems enhance diversity. So bugs, you know, you get spiders, and seeds are eaten by mice, and mice are food for raptors. So it just, the diversity of one thing is not just itself, it's a multiplication factor of what happens when we start to do this sort of thing. Next slide. So wild parsnip, it's a bright yellow flower, but it's poisonous and it's not preferred by pollinators. So in Lanark County, which is sort of between Kingston out to Ottawa area, this is one of the first groups in Ontario to adopt a roadside management plan in order to control wild parsnip. It's been proven to be a successful, decreasing non-native plants and while increasing native plants and biodiversity. Many roads in Iowa, New York have similar practices in effect. I've done a rough evaluation, but a 20-meter strip on our roads would increase the value by 800 hectares, and 6% of that would be an increase into the vegetation group of that nature. So two very interesting outcomes. One, I'll bypass that one. So this is the graph that they've done in Lanark County, and what they've just proven with this graph is that what they've done and gone in and mowed or dug up the roadsides, there's a multiple of different ways of going at this, and then, you know, we leave that to the experts to tell us how to really go at it. But this is a county that's done it in Ontario, and all of a sudden they have good results. They publish their results. They're on video, so you can read them, and they're promoting them as well. And they will definitely help out other areas. So the next slide. That's the Elgin Greenway. Yeah. So the world is facing two unprecedented environmental crises: biodiversity loss and climate change. Global problems that need ground troops on the ground. Of this group, one of the groups is the Elgin County Stewardship Council. It's a nonprofit group, and we, as leaders, need to find ways to employ people and groups like this to be able to sufficiently fund them so that they can keep promoting and in habitat rehabilitation efforts. So Elgin Greenway Conservation Action Plan was done in 2012, and it was used as a reference in the new heritage plan that we just produced for the county, for that CK or Upper Thames created for their natural heritage study. If you review the natural heritage study, the new natural heritage study, please keep in mind that even though they've calculated all the areas and it's very detailed, that in Elgin County, habitat fragmentation is reduced to most natural areas to sizes much smaller than is required to maintain basic ecology functions and diversity. Resilience, biological communities, overall natural coverage across the Carolinian life zone now ranges from less than 7% to somewhere below 18%. So there's a little bit of a difference between what they're stating here, but they're for all of the Carolinian zone. In Elgin County, we fall to two extremes. These are high levels of land conservation, mean that many of these essential ecology processes needed for healthy soil, clean water, and clean air have been severely compromised. Next slide. So the local official plans and the draft for Southwell that's just come out is that the local municipalities in Elgin County have the policies and local official plans to protect significant natural heritage features in areas. Local municipalities will be encouraged to continually to identify and protect the local significant natural heritage features in the area. So this is a slide here, and basically it goes through the divisions that Southwell's put for, and they're putting setbacks through the meters from these things. Unfortunately, again, no funds or structure exist to study these areas. So we've got these areas documented. We could keep them at a bay at 120 meters for development. But again, we need to study these areas to be able to start to tell the viability of them. So a strong statement, and I'm hoping to discuss each and every item on this list. And could we as a group improve or implement action plans on each one identified? It says that municipalities can exceed the minimum standards set out by the county. So this is an example of Southwell's new official plan with setbacks. Nice to see that they've included this into their new official plan. I'm proud of them. Next slide. So natural heritage, the Elgin Natural Heritage Study. This is the one that was just produced by the Upper Thames. It says landscape levels and assessment of natural heritage features and functions, identifies vegetation communities in significant areas. Next steps, what actions will result from this study? I understood that this is a very expensive study, so what could we produce from this study for leadership qualities? And maybe what we could do is the climate act or climate change action plan could be implemented, and that would be a start as to this natural heritage study. This was just a presentation to the council. That's pretty well it for that. Next slide. So this is the meat of the documentation, and I'm still trying to find the potatoes. The total study area of 487,190 acres, or 197,159 acres. You can see it up on the right-hand side there. So that's the total amount, and what they've indicated here is that 23.61% of the listed vegetation community is of that area. 23.6.1 they've accounted for in 17 different groups here. So if we review the chart, we can understand where each individual category of vegetation matter exists. So next slide. Right on. So this is the map of Elgin, and please take note that the vegetation differences between east at BAM and the West Elgin, going towards West Elgin, and it continually gets worse as you go west. So from here, from Southwell, or from West Elgin to Windsor, it gets diminished and diminished and diminished and diminished and diminished because of high agricultural values. So the one bright spot on this map is that if you look in the center, I think you got it, yes, in the center top left-hand side, you're going to see Oneida, Muncie, and Chippewas, I guess, has become the new green spot on this map. And green meaning a lot of other things than green, but that's where so this study is only a vegetation community, nothing about the health of each community, nothing about the community that live there or the absence of communities. So this is a starting block, and what you see here is the veins and the arteries of this lake. If we're going to start somewhere, we've got to start with these arteries. If we're going to improve Elgin County, we've got to fix these arteries up. So that's one thing that I think that should be noted as we move forward as a group. Next slide. So the Canadian affiliation of the world's largest conservation organization, this is a template of how Nature United has implemented a basic strategy to follow. It's a 3-tiered approach: protect, management, and restore. So if we look at protecting in Elgin, we have 18.1% forest. And if you look at the protected side, and if you look at the wetlands, we have 2.8 wetlands, and we have 2.4 grasslands. So I didn't convert that into actual acreage or into hectares, but you can see that what we're dealing with here is 2.8 and 2.4%. It's minuscules. It's not much to work with. So protecting these areas that we have, the significant areas that we have, it's a must. We've got to do a better job of communicating. And I don't think putting in laws and regulations is going to make the difference here. We have to be able to we have to have structure in place to be able to work with these people and work with these zones to be able to enhance them. And that means government and obtaining grants, and that means doing studies of the actual ecosystems that we have in place and how viable they are, because we don't know. We have no idea whether our significant, I've been in many of the significant, the PSWs, the provincially significant wetlands in Southwell, and I can tell you that some of them are extremely viable and others are not. So when we look at that category, just please keep in mind that we're down to the limit now. We can't keep continuing the way we are. We need to do other things, which brings us to the management side. So the management slide of this side, it is what it is. Like, we manage our timberlands. Like, we need to implement things into the management of the forestries to be able to help vitalize these areas. You would think that the forestry would be involved into it because of such devastating effects that we've had over diseases and emerald ash and the multiples of stresses that our woodlots have gone through. They're cutting everything down to 14 inches. So when you go into woodlots now and you look at them, they look like a bomb's gone off because of all the ash trees are down on the ground. There might be some benefits of having a lot of structure on the ground in these bushes, but again, we need studies done. So my heart is into being able to get Elgin County to start to set up some sort of, with the viable groups we have. We have lots of groups here that we can use. And Kettle Creek is no slouch. Like, those guys are great. Like, we could use that, but transfer the energy into more of data retrieval onto existing wetlands and managing forest and managing our landscapes better. So, and that brings me back to the restoration here. So, that brings me to roadsides. Again, this is just one little thing. It's just 12 acres that we could start out with signs, and we could be able to enhance our community and make this a better place to live. So that's pretty well I've got through it. I think that one of the things that we really have to understand is that the people, us as a community, are doing the polluting into the Great Lakes and into our systems. We're the ones that are doing it, and we need taxation maybe based on the amount of pollutants that come into it. So if Kettle Creek can sit there and do a study and say that we've got so much phosphorus moving down that creek, and where does that phosphorus come? They can diagnose where it's all coming from. Well, maybe we should be able to look at things to manage that area to a better ability for the community of people that we have here. So that's pretty well my presentation. And I think that, there's some incredible things that are happening with technology. Everybody knows that. You've got fish farms in Florida now that are being produced on ground because they have saltwater groundwater. So they're pumping the salt water in. It's pure salt water. It's not contaminated, and they're using it for fish farms in Florida. you've got deserts in Australia now that are now been converted over. They're using salt water to produce. They've spent billions to get this technology to where salt water is being used for a greenhouse in the desert to produce tomatoes. So you're going to see magnificent things happen in the future. But if we just don't get a hold of our natural habitat and start to help it out at this point, I'm scared it's going to go. And I'm not the only one. So you've also got another technology called nuclear thorium future. Now, this is where Bill Gates has gone into gear, and he's spent billions on this. He's got a technology that he sold to, or China was doing the test site onto it. But what it is this nuclear fusion that doesn't heat up. So it's like a battery. You pull the wires apart and it doesn't continue to heat up. So China was starting this. All of a sudden, the states put a grasp onto it. So it might be this. So what my point is that there's going to be all sorts of things in the near future. Cars are dead. Like everybody knows, Ford just announced it. Everybody's going electric. So the fuel industry, there's the 30% right there again. The fuel industry is a 30% by the fuel industry that is adding to the carbon emissions of the world. So 30% there, 30% natural habitat. We could do this. And that's where I'm going to stop. I just hope that Elgin County can take this bull by the horns and start to help out into this direction to be able to be the leader that we need it to be able to move through. And I'm all willing to help out as much as I can and do whatever I can over the near future, because my steam is running out. I've got 5 years left, maybe, to be able to do this here to keep up my ambition. But if I can't get it done, then at least I'm at peace to where I'm at. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Rob. That's quite an in-depth presentation. I don't disagree with you. I know there's a lot more we could be doing with regards to our habitat. Definitely, we have a long ways to go to get to where it needs to be. Julie, any comments from your perspective on the reports?
I think we heard some amazingly well-researched reports this morning, and I'd like to commend those who presented this morning. Lots for the committee to consider, certainly when it comes to what recommendations you may wish to bring forward to County Council. I'll help facilitate whatever direction the committee provides to our team today. So I look forward to hearing from committee members as to what the next steps are.
Yeah. Michaela, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for Rob regarding this test sites, this 6 times 2 acres. I looked into the document from that county, which has already started with that. And because we're talking about ditches, right? Can you just approximate how many kilometers that would mean per test site?
Are you asking the kilometers from the test sites from Lanark
Or is this
County?
not the right? Did I understand you correctly that this 2 acres would be like the ditches along a highway?
Yes, these ditches, it would be done on not so much the ditches, but yes, the ditches on the roadside highways. That's where I would like to see it done as a test plot. That's how every other community has gone at it.
Right.
I feel the best way to do it, but we would need commitment as to being able to get it done. The resources are there to have it done. We've got St. William's Nursery. We've got Nativescape over in both of those guys are seed areas that know their business. They've been in university studies. I know them. I know several of the people that work over there. So it's just a matter, and it's not even so much expense. It's just the willingness to get this done and to put up some signs. It could be done very easily. And this is something that is every time that we go out, just like a sign that we see for welcome to Elgin County, it starts to get people into the mode that this is something that can be done, and all of a sudden it takes time. It takes almost 5 years before you're going to get a natural habitat. I've built one here right outside my door using the roadside. So you can come and see this one, but it's flourished, and there's trial and errors there. But you know, these people that are in place know how to do this already and have done it. So to me, it's an easy solution.
Do you have an estimate on how many kilometers we're talking for to get 2 acres?
No, I do not. I could figure that out very quickly, but
Is this the 15 meters, or what do we talk about?
pardon me?
In this plan, it said like the 15 meters is sort of the wildlife zone, right? And behind it would be then the tree zone and everything.
Yeah, there's different structures that have to be put up when you do roadside management. Usually you do your bushes and your stuff that's going to resist the sprays that are coming over from the agricultural community, and then it creates a buffer zone. And if you want to see one of these buffer zones that's in perfect action, it's Bob McCaig did it, and he did it right across from the window plant on the Highway 3 bypass there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
He's did it
thanks
for.
So much. It was a great report.
And there's one very exciting thing about drainage ditches that I did notice. And you can't find any information on rehabilitated drainage ditches. There's just no literature that's available. So, but I did in my investigation find out 2 things. That one is that they're stating they've got a new process going through that is it's a phosphate capturing trap is basically what it is. So the water through the drainage ditches would go through a phosphorus trap. And I got a video of it to where it goes through, and they're good for over 10 years. It's like a septic system, and it removes phosphate out of the water, and then it continues down the stream. And if there's an influx of water, it's just like a sewage plant. It just goes over top of it. But for the most part, it can handle a certain amount, and it goes in there. It's a very new concept that's just been developed. And the other thing is that what they've talked about is that you can use the Drainage Act to be able to start to revive and use it in reverse. And that's really what we have to do. We have to take that Drainage Act and start to understand how we can use it to the benefit of the drainage ditches that were streams at one time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. I guess a couple of things, Julie. Would it be appropriate for our next meeting that Nancy and Brian chime in on this? Obviously, it affects Brian's area expertise and Nancy. I think we need to listen to them and how we could start to look at implementation of possibly some of this stuff, or at least presenting it to council in a way that would be appropriate. Does that sound reasonable?
Certainly, yes. So in the meantime, we'll encourage both Brian and Nancy to review today's meeting. So to watch the great presentations that we've received, and then they'll come prepared with some more information about next steps at your next meeting.
Okay, I think that would be appropriate, and then at least we get to hear what can and can't be done, and obviously we have a long ways to go. It's there's no question that we have to do a better job of our environment, and but definitely would like to hear from them. Would that be okay with the members?
Yes, and Grant, one thing that I would like to say is I thought when Rob mentioned our progressive by nature signs, that would be a great place. Some of these naturalized areas around all those signs, that would certainly be, in my opinion, a great starting place, because we have those signs around in many places, and it's often not very nice around where they are. So if these plantings, Thames Talbot Land Trust did one of these ditches down in the Hawks Cliff Track that's absolutely beautiful. and it's one that they've worked on down there on Hawkscliff Road, if you wanted to see one as well. The key thing is we got to get this natural heritage study adopted into our official plan. That we've been struggling with that a bit as a county council. So Julie may want to speak to that, but I hopefully we'll get that adopted in our official plan. That was the whole point of it.
Yeah, so I'm happy to, Mr. Chairman. Council recently consented to having the community provide input into the Natural Heritage System study as part of the official plan review process as one of the technical documents. So we can anticipate now that we've officially launched the review process that we'll start receiving some public comments on the Natural Heritage System study. And I think as part of the process, council will review that feedback, incorporate any necessary changes, and probably at the same time as they consent to or endorse a new official plan, they'll support that document as well.
Sounds good.
One other thought, Rob, with your naturalized areas, Central Elgin has tried doing that in a few areas where roads used to go, and have a right angle turn, and then we've changed the road so that they have a bend, and then there's this triangle of land that's left. And we tried as our Communities in Bloom group to go in and do some naturalized areas in those areas as well. We've struggled with one. We have a tall grass prairie one, and we've had a hard time keeping invasive species out. And we've done many things, but that is something where there are curves like that and those sort of pieces that the county probably have some of those as well. They might be a great place to start as well.
The grass that we have in our ditches is the absolute hardest to try to start a pollinator garden, and there's very few ways to do it. You got to hit it with herbicides. It's really the only way to get a quick reaction, to go at it quickly. They can do it solarization, you can do sterilization, you can do there's many different modes of it, but to get results, you put in a bean field and you go into with it, you plant beans, and then you go in after the beans are done, and then you start planting into that. You've got to get them going. But in my little area here that I got, and like I say, it's not huge, but there's, I don't know how many species I have there. And one of the things that I do in these areas is I have small little nesting bee boxes, and they're used for educational purposes because the whole box comes out into the fall. So all the bees will nest into these things. Either, different types of bees use nesting holes. So they nest in there, and then you open them up, and then you use them as a tool to be able to show children as to, they take out the pods and then you put them into the fridge for the remainder of the season. You bring them out in the spring and you release them, and off they go. So it's an educational part of it too. But like that's one of the things that we could integrate into some of these areas is some housing for different types of species that live there, that can live there. So it's not just limited to planting a grass. It's, there's other aspects of it.
Okay, great discussion. Julie, do you need any type of resolution at this point, or?
No, I think direction is very clear.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody needs to speak to? It's definitely a great discussion today, and very impressed with the presentations. Seeing nothing further, I guess we have no correspondence. Just have to set a date for the next meeting. So about a month from now, Julie, is that appropriate?
Yes, I think that's reasonable, Mr. Chairman.
So what's everybody's schedule look like on March 24th?
That's going to be a problem for me, Grant, as I had my husband over for his appointment at the IVI Institute at 8 this morning, and it was a short appointment, so I made it back with lots of time, but his next one's going to be 2 to 3 hours, and he can't drive, so I have to take him. So I'm wondering
Okay.
if we could go to the 31st instead.
31st work with everybody? That's good for me. I see heads nodding.
I'm okay with it.
So, okay, so set for March 31st at 10 o'clock. Does that sound good, Julie? Okay, perfect. So motion to adjourn. Oh,
Thank you,
before
Grant.
we do it, any comments from the warden?
Yes, I'd like to hear from the warden.
Not to put you on the spot, Warden Marks, but
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, no, well, thank you for the opportunity to say a word or two. No, I'm just looking out, the sun shining, so I think everyone's in a good mood, but yeah, impressed by the knowledge in this group. Keep it up. Thank you.
Tom,
Okay.
I'm just wondering, like, how
Go ahead.
would we, what would be the procedure to be able to get this going? So would we be able to, like, how would we implement it to get it moving? So are we just going to have a discussion about it next week, or what do you see as how do we format ourselves to be able to make decisions and to help you guys out?
I would defer to Julie on that. What would you suggest, Julie?
Yeah, so I suggest the process that you're currently following, which is to receive information from staff members responsible for certain areas like planning and engineering is a critical component before making a recommendation to council. So that is the role of the committee, is to research, provide advice, and make recommendations to council for approval. So
All right.
does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that. I understand that. So is bringing it to people that can actually understand it and make decisions, and then bring that to council. And once that happens, then council would be able to make a decision onto it.
That's right. Yes, I think that critical step of including the staff members will help council have confidence in the recommendations as well. So that, that will avoid the back and forth between the committee and council if staff have provided their recommendations as well, and that's all integrated together.
All right. So if you need me for anything to help out into that area, or to do studies, or if you need me as a speaker or implement it in any way, I'd be happy to help.
Thanks. We'll certainly take you up on that offer, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Great discussion today, guys, and need a motion to adjourn.
All right. I'll adjourn.
Sure.
I'll second it.
Call the vote, please, Catherine.
Mr. Warden,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Kim Smale,
Kim still
Rob.
have- Oh, yeah.
Kim Smale, Rob Rom,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Michaela Lentz,
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
8-0, the motion is carried.
Have a great day, guys. Thank you.